and welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake Lamore, and our guest on this episode, if you've ever bought or sold a home in the greater Kankakee County area, there's a good chance you may know this fella. And his name is Scott Seaton. He's with SLS Home Inspections. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You are one of our wonderful Patreon supporters.
Yep.
So thank you so much for that.
Yep. Congrats on your new Patreon deal. That was very cool.
Thank you.
Big deal. They're all over the place. So
yes,
you're with the big dog.
Thanks, man. Thank you. So you are known as a home inspector with a heart.
Yes.
And
yes.
So how this episode got into fruition, because you might be listening thinking, why would he have a home inspector on the podcast? And it's like, well, let me tell you, we were having it was like a patron get together one day. I've been trying to do more Kankakee Podcast patron events where, I get to mingle with people that support the show. So this one time we were a select number of us were having lunch together at Binge in Northfield Square Mall. And so it was you, Scott, and I think Ben King was there.
Yeah.
Adam Elroy.
Yep. There was a handful.
There was a handful. There was one or two other people there. And you just start riffing off all of these stories,
goofy stories,
these crazy stories, and
yeah.
A light bulb goes off in my brain because I just could not believe the stories I was hearing about the home inspections you've done. And it was settled in my brain that you were going to come on the podcast to talk about your crazy stories. You've been doing this since 2007.
Right.
So
yeah, the business started in 2007 while I was still working for a large nationwide lumber distribution company. And I was in this one vendor group that took care of the molding, just the molding, at all the Home Depot stores in Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, like 145 stores.
So you're traveling a lot, right?
I was No, not at that point. I had like 10 stores that I took care of. And there was a bunch of other guys. But I was the second guy in charge of this whole group. And the contract was outbid by this French-Canadian company. So all of us, you could either move to Atlanta, Georgia with the previous company and stay with them, or maybe get a job with the new French-Canadian guys. So the
French Canadians, man, I tell you.
Well, they don't. The guy who was in charge of our group, I was the second guy in charge. He did stay with the old company, so I interviewed for his job, and I got it. And so now I'm the guy in charge of all of the reps that take care of these 145 stores. So now I'm traveling.
Okay.
But within before I even knew that I had the job, I was at the Home Depot in Frankfurt, and I was talking to the manager, and he said, "So what's going on with your company? What you guys going to do?" And I said, "I don't know. They might hire us. They might not." And he goes, "Well, you got a job here if you want." And this is like back to selling lumber, which was my previous 30 years of my career were selling lumber and building materials. And I was like, God, again, very difficult. And this is before the mortgage crisis too. This is 07.
Okay.
So he walks away, and the guy who was sitting at the desk, at the millwork desk in Frankfurt, said, "So what's going on with your company?" And I said, blah, 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 blah. I explained it to him. He goes, "This sounds like what happened to me. I worked for Hewlett Packard, and I got a big promotion. And I was in a group of 250 people, and I got promoted to be that boss of those 250 people. And my first job was to go lay off 2/3 of them." He said, "So," I go, "So what's your point?" He goes, "You got to have a backup plan. You got to have a backup plan." I go, "Okay." He goes, "Go back to school." I go, "Okay, what did you do?" He goes, "I went back to school and I got my home inspection license." I'm like, home inspection. Oh, I never. And he goes, you've been selling lumber forever. You go take this test and see how you do. And I went home and I took the test. I said, why do you work at Home Depot? He said, health insurance. Got to have health insurance. So I went home, I took the test, I passed, and I didn't tell my wife anything about it. Like, I'm just like, okay, we'll see what happens. I just didn't want her to worry. And the very next week, she comes home from her job. She said, hey, I just found out, like unprompted, I just found out if something ever happens with your job, I'm eligible for health insurance now. You could be on my policy. I'm like, don't say. Interesting.
The wheels are turning.
Yeah. And then another friend of ours, my wife and I, that year, we were in charge of the church picnic. We were the chairman. And one of the ladies on the committee was the bingo lady chairman. And she said, hey, we need someone else to hook up the lights inside the tent. And the guy's name was Mike. And I said, well, why can't Mike do it? She said, he's going to Branson. I said, okay, maybe we can get the tent early and he can hook it up early. She goes, no, he's moving to Branson. I go, who moves to Branson?
That's a good question.
Nobody. You just go there, you see some cowboy hillbilly shows, and then you come home.
Yeah,
she goes, no, he's moving to Branson. And I said, what's he going to do in Branson? She goes, he'll be a home inspector. He's a home inspector here. He's like one of the biggest guys around. I'm like, really? And so all these little things were like pushing me to check this out. So I checked it out.
Hey, this needs to happen.
Yeah, there's a reason. And so I go to Canada for a meeting with these French Canadian guys. Go to this meeting with them. We're all sitting around this desk, and they're sitting across from us, the French Canadians. Everybody on this side of the desk is Americans. Everyone on that side is French Canadians from this company. And they're like, we can't trust Americans. They're big liars. They're slobs. They're thieves. They're crooks. You got to write them up. You got to give them warnings. You got to suspend them. Like everything that Hewlett-Packard guy was saying he had to do, I had to now think, well, we're all Americans. You're sitting here telling us we're big liars, thieves, crooks, and scumbags.
Yeah,
and,
why are we here?
Yeah.
Why did you hire us?
Well, exactly. So, I'm sure there's no French Canadians that want to come to the Chicago area and go to Home Depots. So I went home, I got into this class, and I loved the class. It was like, if I had, not that I was a bad student, I would just do what I needed to do. In student, be average, whatever, just a kid. I was just in school.
Right. You wanted to move on. You didn't, yeah.
I don't think I ever brought a book home for school. So kids, bad lesson. Bring your books home.
Well, it's different when you're learning because you want to.
Exactly.
When you're learning something that you're interested in, that's different.
Yeah. So I was sitting there in this class, and it's 6 weeks, Saturday, Sunday, 8 to 5, and I'm loving it. If I would have been that interested in real school, I'd be a Rhodes Scholar. I'd be at Cambridge or something. I was just like, this is the greatest. And I'd sit there answering questions all day long, and I couldn't wait to go home and do that part of my house, inspect my own part of the house. Today we're doing plumbing, and I'd go home and do the plumbing that weekend. And so I'm thinking to myself, man, I remember when I was in school, there was always that one kid or that one girl that always raised their hand, always were smart, always knew everything. I go, God, I just couldn't stand them sometimes. You're just so stupid smart. Just, you can make me crazy. And I'm driving to the class one day, and I go, man, I'll bet those guys think I'm like that kid in school. I'll bet they're thinking, like, wish he just shut up. He just thinks he knows everything. He's always got to raise his hand. And so I'm sitting there, I go, I'm going to be quiet today. I'm just going to be quiet. So I go to the class, and it's like 2 hours. It's 10:30, 11 o'clock or something. The teacher finally goes, time out. Turns to me, he goes, what the heck? What's going on? And I go, what? And he goes, why aren't you answering anything? And I said, he goes, you always answer. And I said, when that kid in school was always real smart, they always raise their hand. I go, I couldn't stand them. I didn't want you guys to hate me for being such a smart aleck. And the other guys in the class are like, oh my God, you are so stupid. We count on you. If you don't answer, we'll be here all day. The one guy know
everything. We don't.
The one guy two guys were like motorcycle mechanics or something. Three guys were teachers. They just wanted extra summer money. One guy was there was like 12 of us in the class, or 11, and So I go, okay, as long as you're not thinking I'm a weirdo. And they're like, okay, yeah. And they finally, teacher asks another question. I raise my hand. They go, that's more like it. So that was in 2007. And I started, finished the class, aced the class, loved it, got my license, finished the licensing test, the proctor test. They give you 3 hours. And in 35 minutes after I sat down, I was done. I'm just like,
dang.
Oh, okay, there's something wrong.
That's a record.
I did something wrong. I got to redo this. So I revisited every single question, and that took 10 minutes. So at 45 minutes, I'm like, I'm not changing anything. I'm just going to turn it in. And I turn it in, and they said, yep, you passed. They don't tell you what you missed. They don't tell you what your score was. They just say pass or fail.
Why?
I don't know. They've never changed that rule. Just you passed.
That doesn't sound productive. Like what, wouldn't you want to know what you missed so you can make sure,
Exactly. It's the things you go work on.
Yeah.
No, that's not like that. So that was in 2007, and then I got my license, but now I'm full in on this job, and I'm going to Canada once in a while for these meetings, but I'm going to Minnesota, I'm going to Wisconsin, I'm all over Indiana, I'm in Illinois, and it's like 90 hours a week. It's just a ridiculous schedule. I have no time for home inspections. I do 4 inspections the very, very first year, 2007, did 4. And the only way I did 4 was I wrote letters to a bunch of friends. I said, can I come and do your house just for free? I just want to work on getting a process. And they're like, yeah. Go ahead. So I went over, and like the very first one, I'll never forget, Jason was his name. And he said, yeah, go ahead. So it's a Saturday, and it's snow on the roof, snow all over the ground everywhere. And I'm outside the house, and I've got my worksheet with my 13 pages of notes. I'm circling stuff and, taking pictures and everything. I've got a 56 megabyte camera, digital camera, and old whatever. And so I finish all this, I finished the exterior of the house. I brought extra shoes to put on and boot covers. So I'd be walking around the house, wouldn't have snow melting. I get inside the house. I take the coat and the boots and everything off. I switch, and I'm ready to go. And I'm looking at my paperwork, and I turn the page. It says electrical service entering the house. I'm like, oh, look at that. So I put the coat back on, put the boots back on, go back outside to do all the electrical, come back in. And I get to the next page, switch everything again. And it's like a gas meter. Oh, gotta go do the
getting. Yeah.
So I was in and out of the house like 4 times. Like, okay, this is stupid. So I went home that night, and I literally scissors with tape, cut and taped 13 pages down to 9 in some semblance of an order outside the house and then inside. And I used those pages for 9 more years. 11 more years, 2018. And so it was just like, this is just getting a system and a process. The next year I did 8 inspections. I hadn't even paid for my class yet with whatever money I was making. I haven't been able to pay for my license. I haven't paid for my tools. I ain't done anything.
Because you were still working.
I'm still working, and now it's a mortgage crisis. Nobody's buying houses. The industry is it's a great time not to be anything in real estate.
So it's a good thing you hadn't gone all in yet.
Yes, yeah. The next year I did 12, so it was 2012. I did 2009. I did 12 inspections, and that year I was like. I couldn't stand these French Canadian guys. They were making me crazy. And I said, I don't want to do this job anymore. I just want to go do a few stores a day, go home. No reports, no written warnings, no suspensions. That's a hard job to do when you have to write someone up or fire them or suspend them. It's not as bad on me as it is on them because they're losing their job or losing their money. But I'm not a jerk boss. I'm a compassionate boss. And when I have to go do something like that, I feel like I'm going to puke or poop my pants or my stomach is gurgling.
Yeah,
I
man.
just feel horrible, and I start stalling. I'm like,
That's what I do too.
how about those bears? You're coming up with anything to talk about. Crazy weather, isn't it? And
Oh yeah, by the way, you're fired.
yeah, we need to. So now I'm not the boss, and in 2010 I did 34 inspections. So now I actually have paid for my tools, and I've actually paid for my license, and maybe I've even a little bit of money ahead of the game. And the last day of 2010, the last week of 2010, which December 30th is my wife's birthday, which, let me see my notes here. Yeah, we've been married 42 years. Yes. 42
Happy
years.
anniversary.
Yeah, yeah. So I get I get a call on Monday that week, the last week of the year. So because of New Year's Eve, we're closed on Friday. My day off was on Monday. So I had to they want to know, how are you going to do your stores this week because it's a short week? And I said, well, I'll do here, and then here on Thursday, I'll do Hammond, Indiana, and Schererville. And so then on Tuesday, they said, they sends me a text message, the same guy who took my job after I didn't have that job anymore. And he was just a hitman. He didn't care. He was happy to fire people. He loved that. It was made for him. He just didn't bother him at all. He didn't know anything about the lumber industry or molding or anything. He was a gas station and dry cleaning guy. So he knew 2 liters and unleaded and, starch or less starch, whatever. He knew that. He didn't know anything about what we were actually doing, but he could fire people.
Yeah.
So he comes in, he's like, where are you going to be on Thursday? And I said, well, I just told you yesterday, and like still Hammond and Schererville. And then on Wednesday, what time will you be at Hammond and Schererville? No, I'm not stupid. I've been around. So I'm like, I told my wife, I go, I'm getting fired tomorrow. She's like, are you sure? Stop it. You're crazy. And I go, no, I can tell. And so sure enough, I finish up the Schererville store, and I'm dropping off part of my paperwork in the way back of the store in the receiving area with this one lady. And so I'm walking back down the middle aisle, and sure enough, here he comes walking in with this other guy, a witness. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, I was right. I am getting fired. So I'm thinking to myself as I'm walking down there, if these two guys are feeling anything like I feel when I had to fire somebody, I'll bet you their stomach is gurgling and they're like going to poop their pants and they're going to puke. They're sweating and all. They're probably just feeling sick to their stomach because I hired the one guy and this guy has my job, which he knows. He doesn't know what he's doing. He knows I did. And so I walk up to the edge of the aisle. They're in the molding aisle, and I peek around the corner and I see that they're way down at the other end. So I go, I walk right past the aisle. I go back in the manager's office and I get the mobile ordering device they had. I'm thinking, I better order something so they can't say I didn't do my job that day. So we had one aisle that we had to order some stair parts and stuff. So I go in there and I'm like, I'm ordering, finish that. And then I go another end of the aisle where they had these big packs of molding for contractors. So they don't have to sift. They just buy a big bundle at once. Had to order that. So I peek down the aisle. They're still at the other end. Their stomach's still gurgling, still sweating, still, they're freaking. Like, where's Scott? He should be here by now. Why is his tool bag here? Well, so I go down I finish the molding there, and I go, well, there's nothing left except in the main aisle now. So time to go get fired. So I go walk down the aisle. He goes, oh, there you are. I'll never forget this. It was the funniest thing. How was your Christmas? I go, stalling. He's doing small talk. He's doing what I would do because
he never does that, right?
No, it proves that he's really nervous, like I was always. So I said, he goes, did you get anything interesting for Christmas? And I said, yeah, I actually did. I got this turntable that you can play albums on and put it on your iPod and listen to album music on your iPod. And he goes, are you talking about 78 albums? I actually said, No, Benny Goodman. It's like Eagles and Beatles and Stones and ELO and whatever. And he's like, oh, I just didn't know. And so he goes, we need to talk. And so we go in this other aisle and he fires me. And then I come back and I drove home and I called my wife. I said, hey, I got fired. It's on her birthday. We're supposed to go to Brickstone to eat.
Oh, man.
And we were going to buy dinner for a handful of people. I go, we're not buying anybody dinner.
I
don't have a job. And the next day, I went to all of the real estate offices on New Year's Eve, all the local offices. And I said, I'm not part-time anymore. I'm full-time from now on. And so that next year, so that's 2010, the next year we did 111 inspections. The market's coming back. It's getting a little busier. I'm on my wife's insurance.
Right.
Perfect. And then 2012 comes and it gets a little bit busier, not much. There was one day in 2012 where it was a Saturday, and it was the first time I ever had 2 inspections in the same day.
You don't do 2 inspections in the same day normally? Or is this just
No, this is the first time.
Oh, the first time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the first time. The first time I ever did 2 in one day, and they both pay me with cash. It was like, here's like $700 or something back then. It was a little less expensive, but both pay me in 20s. Came home, walked in the back door, and my wife's sitting on the couch doing something, and I went over and I said, I had all these 20s in my pocket. I said, I go, hey, honey, I can't predict. I can't predict for sure, but I said, I got a really good feeling this home inspection thing might just work out. He goes, why do you say that? And I go, get this. And I pulled out this stack of 20s, like it's a stack. And, not that I never had that much money, but if I ever did, it would be going from selling this car to buying that car, or selling this house to buying that house. It was just a paper shuffle. Mm-hmm. The money's going here to there, and I never touch a penny of it.
Yeah, you're just trading.
Yeah,
essentially.
And so here I am, and I said, look at this. They both pay me with $20 bills, and I went like, I just started making it rain with these 20s. I throw them all up in the air. She goes, you're crazy. And I'm like, I am maybe, but I just got a good feeling about this. So that was the middle, or somewhere around the middle of 2012. Well, on December 10th, 2012, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this crushing pain. At the time, I was the scoutmaster for Troop 324 in Bourbonnais. I had just done 2 second-class scout rank advancements the Tuesday before. So this is a Sunday night, actually like Monday morning, 1:30 on Monday morning. And I just done 2 Scoutmaster rank advancements, and one of those requirements is, what are the signs of a heart attack?
Oh my gosh.
And so, not that I didn't know it already, but I had just done this with these 2
so
scouts.
It's fresh on your mind.
Really fresh. And I wake up in the middle of the night, and it feels like both of these desks and you, Andrew, everybody's sitting on top of my chest. It's just crushing pain. And I wake up, I sit up, and I roll over, and it's worse. Like, what am I doing? I sat wrong or laid wrong. And I sit up in the edge of the bed. I am dripping with sweat and crushing pain, sweating for no apparent reason. Those are heart attack signs. If they ever happened, call 911 right now. So I woke up my wife. I said, call 911, having a heart attack. So we had a landline at the time. She also had a cell phone, but sometimes cells maybe work, maybe don't. So she runs downstairs. I get some clothes on, like a shirt and some jeans, and I go downstairs, and I'm sitting there, and the police were there, and like we live close to the Bourbonnais Police Department. There's a police officer there in like a minute. He puts the front door open, puts a light on the front of the door. The ambulance is there like in 3 minutes. They get me out into the ambulance. They give me some nitroglycerin, and then some baby aspirin, and they put a mask, a oxygen mask on it. We're in the ambulance. We're going to I still remember the paramedic. He was a great guy. Still friends with him. He says, "Okay, Rick, we're going to get you to the hospital as fast as we can. We're on the way now. We're keeping an eye on you. Blah blah blah." And I go, I'm in this mask. I go, my name is Scott. Like this. He goes, I don't know if he was just doing that to me, see if I would stay with him, stay awake. Because he told me later, it looked really bad.
Yeah.
So I get...
that sounds bad.
We get down to the, and it was unbelievable pain. We get to Court Street. We're turning to go to Riverside. My wife's in the ambulance too. There's two other paramedics, and we're turning. He goes, all right, Rick, we're turning onto Court Street. We're almost there. We're going to get you in the emergency room. You're going to be okay. And I go, my name is Scott. Like this. He's like twice he did this to me. It was so funny. So we get to the ER, and there was one of the ER techs or the ER people there. He said it looked really bad. So he put these shock pads on me, and they're like, why are you putting those on? He told me later the story. He goes, I didn't think you were going to make it. You were gray. You looked really, really bad. So he said, I put them on and I just kept watching just in case, because it would save time. And so one of the things that paramedics and they do a lot is, what's your pain level? What's your pain level? 1 to 10.
Always asking that.
1 to 10. And I'm just like, okay, it's 10. It's off the boards. 10. It's crushing. And they're like, okay. And then when I get there, they're like, what's your pain level? And I go, oh, it's 10, you know. And so they finally, I'm getting annoyed with them asking me this. And at one point, I'm like, the pain, I'm just like, my legs, I'm shaking my legs like this a little bit. And my wife goes, he's freezing. I'm sweating to death. Literally dripping with sweat. I'm burning up so much. And my wife goes, he's cold. He needs a blanket. So they bring one of those stupid heated blankets.
Oh, no.
They put a heated blanket on me. I'm like, I kick it off. I'm like, get the blanket off of me. Two of my daughters are there on the one side, and Mary's on the right side. And at one point, they even said, it looks like you've been here before for something. Were you born in 1935? I'm like, my wife says, that's his dad, because he's Scott Seaton Sr.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
I'm
that.
junior. He's
I didn't
senior.
know you were a junior.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they go, no, that's his dad. They had to cut the band off of me and change the screen and start all over.
Oh, my God.
So then finally they go, they're going to give me a shot of morphine. And they give me this shot of morphine. They said, no, what's your pain level now? And I'm like, nice. I'm okay. This is like 4 or 5 maybe. I go, like a 4 or 5, way better. I look over at my daughter, Sarah. I give her a thumbs up. And then this thing happens called VTAC, ventricular tachycardia, where your heart stops beating and it starts vibrating like saw teeth on a cardiogram. It's like, you're dead, essentially. So like I do the thumbs up, and then my doctor, he walks in, sees what's happening on the screen, and yells to everybody to get out. And I go like, bloop. It's 40 seconds where I'm gone. And they shock me once, and nothing happens. And they shock me again, and I wake up, and they're like smacking my face, and I go, okay, let's go to the cath lab. And they take off with the bed down to the cath lab. Well, when you get shocked, or morphine, I'm not sure which one does it, but you want to throw up.
Yes, I think that's a common side effect for morphine and medications like that.
Well, yeah. I did, and it was all the way down the hall. Yeah. I mean, it was everywhere. Yeah, it was a mess. I believe it. And they get to the door, and they're like, okay, my wife and the kids are following behind. They're like, okay, guys, tell your dad, you'll see him a little bit. And they're like, yeah, we're just gonna do this Sammy Sosa thing. We're not coming anywhere near you, Mr. Pukey, because it was bad. And so they go in and they put the stent in, and then I get out around, this is like 3 o'clock, like literally an hour and a half after everything started. I'm in a recovery room in ICU, and everything is like, because they went in through my leg, they had to make a decision there. And now they're giving you all these blood thinners. You couldn't stop bleeding. They had to put pressure on my leg to hold the pressure in 3 hours. It was like 7 o'clock. And these 3 nurses, bless their soul, were like, they would push and push until they were shaking.
Yeah, because their muscles
they just couldn't push anymore. They're dripping with sweat, trying to push and push and push, and then they'd have to swap. And then they would push again. And this went on for 3 hours. Nobody could come and see me. Nobody in the room. And then it finally stopped around 7:30 or whatever. And then the first meal they bring me is grits. It's like,
and you're just thrilled.
Yeah, like grits. Like, when did I wake up in Tuscaloosa or something? What are we doing here? And they're like, well, it was the only thing left on the menu. It was like that was available. And like,
Yeah.
Of course it's available. Who would want it? Bring it back to him.
Yeah.
So a couple days later, I was released and went home. And my middle daughter, Leslie, still is a vegetarian. And I ate meat. And there was one part was in the hospital where my mom, so my wife, my kids, my mom, a couple of friends, doctor or somebody were there. And my mom said, well, you're just like your grandpa Seaton. He died of a heart attack when he was 53. And I'm like, no, that's not correct. He died of something else. My grandma and my mom looked, so my grandma died of a heart attack on my dad's side. And my mom looks at my dad and she goes, I thought your dad died of a heart attack when he was 53. Yeah, he did. And she goes, yeah. And I look at my sisters. You guys know that? Nope. I said, when did you think that would be a good idea to tell us that?
Yeah.
Like
right.
Every single health survey I've ever done on every doctor visit in my whole life, it's got what have you had?
Right.
What's a history in your family? I go, yep. Not applicable. And I draw a line to the bottom of the page. Mm-hmm. We're the healthiest family on the face of the earth.
Right.
Not true.
Not true at all. Yeah. That's why they always push to know, what's not only your parents, but your grandparents.
Yes.
And both sides of the family.
So when were you planning on telling us? And I go, we thought you knew. And I go, oh my God. So I got out a couple days later and I'm at home and Leslie comes and she goes, I want you to watch this movie. And because she was a vegetarian, there was like one shelf in the pantry that was like all Leslie's whack food. All her healthy food. And we just made fun of her all the time because nobody would eat it except her. And she said, I want you to watch this movie. And I'm like,
was it Super Size Me?
No. No, I said, Leslie, I don't want to watch a movie about pigs getting their heads cut off.
That was going to be my next
guess. Cows, falling off and getting bled out and chickens getting tossed into grinders. She goes, not that at all. She said, you know how you've always told me and Natalie and Sarah and Daisy, you always told us that I'm the smartest guy you're ever going to know. I said, yeah. She goes, if you're so smart, I want you to watch this movie and then tell me. She goes, so she kind of used my own great advice.
Yeah.
And based on many different, boyfriends or whatever over the years, I still think I'm the smartest guy they may have ever known. There's a couple that are really pretty smart. And if it was actually ever a competition, they may be smarter than me. But then I was way above whatever else and the other guys. So I said, all right, I'll watch the movie. And it was the movie called Forks Over Knives.
I remember it, but I never saw it. I remember the title. Yeah,
it's a Hulu movie. Some people call it Forks for Silver Knives.
Oh, okay.
But it's not. It's Forks over Knives. And it's about these two doctors that have two different studies about Western-based diet compared to a plant-based diet and how it changed the health of a bunch of different people that they were doing the study on, like obesity and heart disease and cholesterol and diabetes, whatever. There's a bunch. Just a whole bunch of stuff and all of them had remarkable results. They finally met up, compared the results, and they were like, whoa, getting the same results. This is great. So I said, okay, I'll watch the movie. And I watched the movie, and it's a good movie. It's on Hulu. It's like an hour and a half or something. And I said, okay, I'll do vegetarian for a week. Well, the time she was supposed to be leaving, so this is December, she's supposed to be leaving the end of December after Christmas to go to New Zealand with her boyfriend for a year and work on organic farms for a year. She says, we're not going to leave. We're going to stay and help you learn how to cook vegetarian. So I watched the movie and I'm like, okay, I'll do it for a week. And then a week was 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks was a month. And then a month was 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever. And now it's been 12 years, 11 years.
Wow, and you're still a vegetarian?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. And so she stayed, showed us how to cook all these different foods and stuff. People always say to me, don't you miss meat? Don't you wish you could have a bacon cheeseburger, like a sausage pizza or a brat? And I'm like, yeah. Yeah. That
sounds good.
That would be crazy awesome. I was like, I would love to do that. And I said, I've got this great logic on somehow if I was ever to learn that the earth was going to be hit by a meteorite and the end of mankind as we know it, but I'm the only one that knows it. And it's going to happen in 7 days. So day one, I would get like 3 Chicago-style dogs, and sport peppers, and like on day 2, I would get a beef sausage combo from Portillo's.
Of course.
Day 3 would be a Reuben with grilled pastrami with the cheese encapsulating it. You know.
Oh my gosh.
I've got like a double cheeseburger.
You've got this all figured out.
A double cheeseburger from Shoop's would be like on day 4. I've got all these different things figured out. And so the thing is, if you ever see me somewhere eating any of like a giant meat meal, just be like, oh my God.
The end of the world
is a meteorite. What day are we on, Scott? What day is it? It's meteorite day.
That's so funny.
So and we've learned how to adjust and accommodate weddings or events, stuff like that.
Sure,
so,
there's always a way to work around it.
Yeah. But you got to be a little proactive. We go to weddings and people, you get the card, the response card, and we just scribble out the meal menu options, put a new box and write vegetarian option, chef creation.
Oh, okay.
And you send that in, and then when we haven't been to a whole lot of weddings since COVID, but before that, we'll be at the table and the guy will come around. We've got 2 vegetarians, and like 4 or 5 people raise their hand. They're like, no, we only have 2 that were requested. And everybody else is like, I didn't have vegetarian on my card. How did that happen? And I'm like, we asked. I didn't know that. You could do that. And I go, well, you're not a vegetarian. If we don't ask, we're not eating.
Mm-hmm.
We're eating like some celery and some potatoes,
whatever,
and beans,
out
and
there.
just leave everything else on the plate. It's kind of like, this is not good. So, yeah, that was so literally 2 weeks after the heart attack, I'm on a sales conference training call that I go on once in a while, and this guy says, "Hey, you can have a personal half-hour session with a coach," and the coach said, "We'll talk to you about your business and stuff." So I schedule it, and I meet this guy on middle of December or something, end of December. And I said, "Hey, I've got," he says, "Tell me your story." So I tell him the story, and this is right up to the heart attack. And he goes, "You're the home inspector with a heart." And I said, "Wow, that's like, no wonder you're a good sales trainer. You can snap
good
up a
marketing there.
Cool little tagline like that." He goes, "Go ahead, you can have it.
Yeah.
You can use it." I said, "Okay,
yeah,
I will."
If you ever have seen, or you should look it up, the SLS home inspection logo, that's why there's the heart. That
if you saw the original iteration of that logo, it's the funniest looking thing. It's like on an Iroquois title notepad, green picture of a house with a sun and a heart in the middle of it. It looks like it was drawn by a 3rd grader. And that became the logo.
Yeah.
So then a year or so later, Riverside called, and they said, "We would like you to go to our dinner that we have at the country club. It's not the heart ball. It's the," I don't know what exactly it's called, but they said, "We want you to be the grateful patient. So come and do this video." And so I went to the hospital, and in a little video room, sort of set up like this, and we did this video, and my wife Mary and Natalie both were there, and did the video, and they put the video out, and it's still on YouTube on Riverside Hospital Home Inspector with a Heart. You can watch it and check it out. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
It's got that one moment, like that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And when they released it, they previewed it at the the event.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and they also had commissioned Natalie from Moon Cookie Gallery. They commissioned Natalie to paint a painting that hangs outside the cath lab.
That's awesome.
And they unveiled that the same night. So here we are at the dinner, and these little old grandmas come up to me, like these little posses, like like they're tapping me on the arm. They're just the sweetest little ladies. We're so glad you're still here.
Aww.
We're so glad you're still here, like that. And I'm like, well, I'm glad to be here too. And donate all you want, like whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty cool. But so after that, really the mortgage crisis is really getting over it before that, and we just kept growing and growing and growing, and eventually hired an inspector. Luke is our lead inspector. We've done over 5,500 inspections. Over the years, we're licensed, insured. We do mold testing, asbestos, lead paint. Pre-listing inspections is a one that we don't do that many, but we should do more.
I was talking to a realtor recently, and she was talking about how that's something she always suggests to people to get done. And I don't hear enough about that either. So
yeah, it really, if you're in a time crunch to sell your house, that's a really smart thing to do, because every single thing that is found on a home inspection may be that hot button. I always use the analogy of like a big pie. There's a big pie there, and those are the price of your house. There's X number of people that fit into that pie that can afford to buy your house. And you just need one little thing or big thing, whatever, that is found on their buyer home inspection that comes up, and they say, remember that house we had 5 years ago, honey? Yeah. I'm not buying this house. They just jumped out of your pie. Now your pie got a little bit smaller, and say it's this thing, another person. So having that stuff done because you knew about it ahead of time, it's not going to be in the new inspection report. You can actually put the inspection report on the table, say, yeah, we found out that we had a problem with missing shingles, and here's the invoice for the roofing company that came and fixed the shingles. It's right there, taped to that page. And so that's sitting on the kitchen counter when they come to look at your house. Totally transparent. Speeds up the whole process. And a lot of times when someone asks for a credit on something, because maybe they know you're in a crunch, they're going to say, well, it's like a $400 fix to do that. Let's ask for $1,000.
Yes.
They may inflate that amount because they maybe don't know exactly how bad it might be. Maybe the shingles is just shingles. Maybe there's a leak under the shingles.
Then you got a bigger problem.
Yeah. So it saves you a whole lot of aggravation later on, and speeds the whole process along. So pre-listing inspections, small percentage of what we do, but it really is a smart thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to hear some of these golden stories that you've told. You were telling that one day we were having lunch together. Yeah. I gotta hear some of these again.
There's a handful of them. The very, very first inspection I ever did is a goofy story, because I had literally not even done a house other than in training with the class. And I get this call from this company in Florida, and they go, we've got a inspection. We're looking for somebody we can trust, a home inspector who is good with taking pictures and stuff. And they said, there's a flatbed semi-trailer in Peatone at this truck repair place off of Route 50. And they said, we need you to go and look at this semi-trailer. We'll pay you $50 and just take a bunch of pictures of the tag numbers and the VIN number, whatever it is on a truck that's like welded in or something, and the tires and this and that, and we'll pay you $50, and here's your little template that you use. So I go, okay, $50. And so I go there, I take these pictures, I fill it out, I send it in, and they stiff me.
Oh.
They never pay me. So my very, very, very first inspection I ever did was a truck
Yeah, and that sounds shady. Why are you going to call a home inspector to take a look at a truck?
Yeah, it didn't make any sense.
That's
weird. It was so I'm like, I wrote him letters. I go, thanks. It's just you've given me a good life lesson.
Yeah.
Don't do anything from a company like you without getting paid first, even if it was only $50. So it was just kind of, it's a truck, and I didn't get paid. That was goofy. There was one gentleman. So we meet a lot of buyers at the job site, at the house, when we're doing the inspection. But every once in a while we meet homeowners that are selling, the sellers. And there's always there's once in a while, there's some really attentive sellers. They want to follow around and see every single thing that you're doing. So they're literally like a helicopter, like.
Yeah, and what do you do in those situations? Because that has to be kind of the tensions can get pretty hot.
Well, what I don't say is like, who's the idiot that did this? What kind of a moron would do something like this? Oh my God, how are you still alive? I don't say anything like that. I just, when that happens, I'm just taking pictures. And so in this case, every single thing I took a picture of, every single thing was either, oh, that's been that way since we moved in. Oh, we've never had a problem with that. Oh, that's been like that for 20 years. I'm just like, hey, I get it. I get to and when I'm in the kitchen, I'm pretty much, our routine ends us up in the kitchen. So I always look above the microwave, because sometimes there's some janky wiring in there. Mm-hmm. And I open up the cabinet above the microwave, and there's 4 mouse traps in there. Oh. Set, baited, ready to snap, with little mouse turds all around. Ugh. And I turned to the guy and I said, mice, huh? He goes, no mice. I said, what's with the traps? And he goes, it's preventative. I go,
it's preventative.
Preventative? I go, what does that mean?
Are the mouse turds preventative too?
He goes, it's preventative. It scares the mice away. And I go, you're kidding. He goes, no. And I go, so you're telling me that a herd of mice are going to come in here, and they're going to walk in this little hole in the back of the cabinet, and they're going to see those mouse traps, and Big Louie, the boss mouse, is going to go, back up, boys. They got mouse traps. I'm scared. You're not scared, Big Louie? Yeah, get out of here. Save yourself. And so he goes, I go, I never heard of that. So I close the cabinet. I open up the drawer below the oven where the pizza pans are. More mouse traps, more little droppings. And I said, preventative. He goes, yeah. And I go, so I go outside, and I finally catch up with the buyer, and the seller's not with me. And I said, all right, I'm not sure what's going on with this guy, but every single thing I've looked at in this house, he says, never been a problem. It's been that way for 20 years. And I said, now I just found 8 mouse traps, baited, set, ready to snap, above and below the microwave and the stove. And he told me they're preventative and they scare mice away. And this buyer says to me, does that work? I go, well, no, it doesn't work. I said, I did see it work one time on a Tom and Jerry cartoon where Tom gave Jerry a cheese on a Christmas present on a mouse trap with a little bow on it, and Jerry was smart enough to lift it up with a candy cane and then eat the cheese, and then Tom comes running in and his tail swings in and goes in the mouse trap. That time it worked. That's the only one. Oh it was so funny. Man, there was a during COVID, there was we like the buyers to be there. We think it's a great idea to be there.
Right. You usually have, I remember being there, you have them, invite them to come towards like the tail end of the inspection. Because depending on the house, the inspection could take a while.
It takes, sometimes 2 to 3 hours, longer if it's a bigger house. We like to have buyers there because we think it's a good idea to learn what we're showing you. So when you see it on the report, it's right there in front of you. It's real easy to remember, like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And it's not a rule you have to be there. It's just a good idea to be there, especially for first-time buyers. I like to tell first-time buyers, good advice. This I told my own daughters and my son, you buy with your head, not your heart. Don't let a perfectly good fireplace where you're not going to live in the living room be your deciding factor, because it's got some beautiful mantle and and a cool fireplace and a neat looking tile on the floor, and the rest of the house has problems. And you're like, I just really love that fireplace.
That's so funny you say that, because that almost happened to me.
Yeah.
That same.
Yeah.
I love a fireplace, and the first house I had a contract on had a fireplace, but it, foundation issues were really bad.
Right. You're not going to live in the fireplace room. You're gonna be like, and you don't want to live for a house. You want to live in a house.
Yes,
yeah. Don't make your whole life be part of the house.
Yes.
Or to keep this house going.
Yeah.
So the other thing we tell people is don't bring your children to an inspection. That they'll be bored in literally 5 minutes, and you are going to be totally distracted. Even older kids are like, oh, this is so stupid. Which room is mine? That's all I need to know. But the one person that sometimes creates a little bit of fun, and I'm doing that with air quotes, it's fun having a father of a daughter who's buying her first house, and he's in the trades dad. Great guys. They know a lot. I can learn a lot from them. But they're literally like squirrels in a backyard with underneath an oak tree. Every acorn, like, oh, I got to get that one. Oh, what about that? Oh, and they'll literally make you nuts, like an acorn. And so during COVID, there was one that happened where I'm in the kitchen again, and I'm with this young woman buying her first house. Her father was there, and the buyer agent was not there that time. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But this time they weren't able to make it. And so here I am in the kitchen, and my phone rings, and it's the listing agent. Listing agent says, I don't know who that man is, but would you go get him out of the study, have him stop looking through our mail and our file cabinets.
Oh my gosh.
And so I go walking down the hall towards the front, and the study's usually right there by the front door. 2 French doors, glass doors. And I open the door. I go, what are you doing? He goes, what? And I go, what are you doing? And his daughter's like right behind me. He goes, got to make sure they're not hiding anything. Got to protect my little girl. And I'm like, oh my God. I go, dude, you just got me in a whole bunch of trouble. You got to leave. He goes, and the daughter was like mortified. She's like, Dad,
yeah,
oh my God.
Because they could press charges, right?
Yeah, they had a camera in the room.
Yeah.
They were in their little study. So I said, you got to leave. I can't do my job and watch you. He goes, he puts his hands on his hips like, it seems like you're putting me in a timeout. And I go, you're right.
Yeah,
you're
I'm exactly putting you in a timeout.
I can't say it any better than that.
Who the heck knows? Like, yeah. I mean, he's going through personal information.
Yes.
I mean,
he goes outside, sits on the front porch. It was cold out, and he's smoking a cigarette. And then pretty soon it's like too cold. And then he's in his truck. And then she's like, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. I go, no, I'm the one that, if there's no agent there, I'm in charge of the house. I got to lock the house up. I got to turn everything off, put everything back the way it was. We don't want you to even think we were there. When you walk in, you're like, the only way they can tell we're there is there's our business card sitting on the table and a thank you card letting us into the house. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we don't even want them to know we're there. So that was kind of a weird one. So,
that's bizarre.
Yeah. The worst house I ever inspected was a good story. And this was a long time ago. And so I've learned now way years later, how to write up a report like this.
Was this the one that was down in Iroquois?
Yes.
County?
Iroquois County. Yeah. Yeah. And it had, the woman pulls up, she had called me to do the inspection because the village wanted to condemn her house and get rid of it. And she was like, no, this house is in my family. And so
she was trying to sell it.
She was trying to sell it. Yes. So this was a pre-listing inspection. And so I pull up to the house, and she's already there, and she's out in the front on the road. And this guy pulls up behind me. He's the prospective buyer. And he says, we're just standing there talking. She pays me, and I'm looking at the house, and I said, is the side door open? I said, because there's no stairs to the front door. He goes, well, there used to be stairs to the front door. There was a whole porch there, and I could see there was this outline of a roof. And I said, what happened to you just took the porch off? She goes, no, the termites ate so much of the wood on the porch that it fell off into the front yard. And I'm like, what? how is that possible? So it was like 4 feet up, so you'd have to jump up to that. So I go around the side and we go in the house after I took 100 pictures around the outside, and this guy's following me around, the prospective buyer,
Sure,
the whole time. And get inside, all of the plaster's gone. All of the copper pipe is gone. All the electrical wires are gone. The stairway had been eaten at the top of the stairs by the termites, and it crashed down into the floor. The cabinets were gone. The countertops were gone. The flooring was gone. It was basically just a wood shell of a house. And so I put my ladder up, and I go upstairs. The floor in the kitchen was sloping towards the middle like a yoga ball would roll into the middle. I get upstairs, and there's chicken wire on all the windows. There's these 2 big piles of raccoon doo-doo in 2 different rooms because raccoons are very territorial. They're not like cows that do cow pie bingo and just wherever you're walking, you go. Raccoons just go in one spot. And I open up this one door that goes into an attic part, and there's like 500 wasp nests with 1 million wasps buzzing around. And so I'm taking pictures of all this stuff, and the guy, finally we get done, ready to leave, and he goes, "So what do you think?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Should I buy the house?" So now I was
like, really? Did you really just ask me that?
And I had been like fairly recently out of home inspection school, but even today, I know I can't say that. That's not our job.
That's something that you're not allowed.
That's not part of our job. We don't say whether you should sell or we should buy a house, how much you should pay for it, how much your percentage for commission should be, any of that. We don't do any of that. We observe and report. We look at a house. A home inspection is a visual inspection of the house, non-invasive, and we put pictures with the words and everything, and we follow the standards of the state of Illinois. That's a home inspection, as simple as that. So I said, well, I'm trying to think of a good way to answer the question, should I buy the house? And I said, well, you saw what I saw, right? And he literally turns into like Spicoli from Fast Times after he wrecks the car. He's like, well, I got a really good set of tools. I think I could fix it up. And he's like his hands on his hips. He's like, I got a really good set of tools. And I go, but you saw what I saw, right? Like I'm really emphasizing the right. And I literally almost could see a light bulb go bloop up above his head. And he goes, that is a lot, isn't it? And I go, yeah, that's a lot. So then I tried to document everything that was still, just because of the house, it's still the worst inspection report, the largest inspection report ever. It was 85 pages.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was gigantic.
85 pages?
And it took me hours to write it up. So today I have.
You should have charged triple for that.
I have a comment today that is directly used on houses like that, which they're very rare, but it basically says that this home is in heavy need of extensive, possibly expensive repairs. This report is not designed to address every single issue. That's basically, if you see that in one of my reports, you are buying a real POS. You just better know what you're doing and have a whole crew. So that was the worst house ever. That was that was the funniest one.
This has been so much fun. And
Let's schedule another one.
And we need to do another one. There has to be a part 2. And I'm not kidding when I say that, just because we've barely scratched the surface. You're just a man of amazing stories, especially when it comes to home inspections. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on, being a supporter. And where can people, how can people get a hold of you if they're...
Yeah, we're easy to schedule. When you make an offer on a house and it's accepted, the next business day is when your 5-day window. You could have a different one if you have a different contract, but the majority, you've got 5 days to get an inspection completed. So we send you the report the same day. So when you get your offer accepted, you can either go online to slshomeinspections.com, and there's a schedule button right on there. You can go on you can just call 815-644-6271. Your agent may have one of our cards or may have us in their phone. We always recommend getting an agent, and if you want even more protection, get an attorney, because agents are not attorneys, and they don't say they are. So you don't want to do that. But yeah, we've got a website. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We've got just call, text, whatever. That's the best way. Google reviews is a big deal. If you'd like to leave us a Google review, if you've had an inspection and you want to leave a review, those are very powerful. And if you shop like most people on earth, most people do, you look up reviews and ratings on something before you use it. You look up our reviews and ratings, leave a review if you've had an inspection. And we look forward to working with everybody. Luke is our number one lead inspector, and he does a phenomenal job.
Yes, he does.
He's half my age and just about just the perfect employee. Like, he's a really, really great guy to work with and have an inspection done with. He just doesn't talk as much as I do, which I've heard that my whole life.
No, but he does great work.
I know.
Great work.
Well, we both went to the same school.
Yeah.
We both use the same software. I trained him. He did 85 inspections with me before he went out solo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
so he's super smart, super computer savvy, and so when you see the blue SLS Home Inspections mobile driving around town, honk and wave or whatever. So
okay.
Yeah, we'll put another time together. We'll just do stories that
we'll just pump out those stories. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yep.
Well, thank you again, Scott.
Sounds good. Thank you.
That concludes this episode of Kankakee Podcast. I'm Jake Lamore. Thank you so much for listening. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Kankakee Podcast. Shout out to Teague Dreenan for supporting the show each month through Patreon. If you want your name announced on a future episode, you can sign up at patreon.com/Kankakee Podcast. Special thanks to our sponsors, Chicago Dough Company, Noble Dairy Queen Stores, Frank's Appliance Center and Sleep Source, King Music, Little Me Studio, D. Westfall Jewelers, and Edward Jones Financial Advisor Adam Elroy. Kankakee Podcast is produced by the fine team at Pathfinder, a full-service marketing agency in downtown Kankakee. You can learn more at yourpathfinder.io. Our theme song is by Lupe Carroll.